Thanks for tuning into part 2 of the 4 questions every leader or prospective leader needs to ask themselves so they can understand their own potential of being a good leader. You'll remember in part 1, the 2 questions we asked ourselves is, do we agree with collaborative group behaviors? And what we find is that if we don't agree, we're not going to be a very good leader for a collaborative group. The number 2 question, which was equally as important, as all 4 questions are equally as important, is do you care? And do you care really gets into, do you care enough about the people that work for you to create a collaborative culture? It's not easy to do a lot of times when there's a lot of challenging personalities or different types of behaviors that you're going to have to deal with and hold people accountable to. So do you agree and do you care were the 2 important questions in the first part of this video. Now let's get into part 2, and the next question that is equally as important is, do you lead? In order to lead a group using collaborative group behaviors, you're going to need to lead first and manage second. Leading people becomes more important than managing them. And you'll see in my video on the difference between leadership and management that there is a very stark contrast. So if you really want the group to move forward as a leader, you need to lead. So let's get into a few more bullets of what that means to actually lead so we can define and suggest to you how a leader does lead in a collaborative group and see if this is something that you still want to do, okay? Leaders face a constant flow of situations that force them into imperfect solutions. We can never wait sometimes for the perfect solution. Things are going wrong, there's a problem to solve, or there's some sort of damage that needs to be mitigated. And sometimes you've got to jump in there with an interim solution that's not very perfect. Everybody's going to see it, and you're going to have to explain, well, it's the best we can do for right now. Along with those types of decisions and that decision-making process that a leader has to participate in is making unpopular decisions. Some decisions you'll find are the perfect solution to a problem, but it turns out to be very unpopular when you have to apply it. So what you have to do during that process is you have to convince everybody that this is the best way to go about it while you're implementing the solution, while everybody's expressing a lot of displeasure with the decision. So if you're going to be in a leadership position, how does that sound to you? Does that sound like something you can do or that you want to do? So this is why number 3 question, do you lead, is a very important question. The next very important thing you need to know about do you lead is your failures are now going to be public failures. I mean, it doesn't feel good to fail. None of us want to fail, and it feels so horrible. But in this situation, now that you're going to be in a high-profile leadership position, all your failures are now public. How does that feel? Does that sound like something you can do? If it sounds like something you can't do, then you might want to rethink your approach to becoming a leader. The other thing that happens along with that failure is not only do you have to take the hit when the failure occurs in a public fashion, but now you have to come in the next day and lead just like you did the day before. As a leader, you're expected to recover from that failure near instantly and come in the next day and keep on leading. Are you dedicated towards recovery behavior instead of scapegoating when things go wrong? It becomes very easy when things are going wrong and you find that maybe somebody has made an error. It becomes very tempting to focus in on the person who made the error instead of the error. Well, what great leaders do when they're leading is that they focus in on the behavior or what went wrong. And when you do that, not only does the individual recover, but the whole group recovers very, very quickly. If you scapegoat and you're always blaming the person instead of the event, they never have an opportunity to improve, and your group is not able to leverage the improvement of the error. So it's really key. As a leader, you have to focus in on recovery behavior and not scapegoat towards the person who made the behavior. Now, a lot of times coworkers can be very, very upset with the person who made the error, and they're going to be wanting you to scapegoat and to go after that person. And as a leader, you're going to have to resist that. You're going to have to explain to them why you're not doing that and why you're instituting recovery behavior. So it becomes very complicated to be a leader, especially under stressful situations. So is that something that you're ready for? That's what you need to ask yourself, okay? Do you avoid uncomfortable situations? Well, I think the rational answer to that is, of course. Who invites uncomfortable situations into their lives? And it's much more comfortable to be comfortable. But what you need to understand is that when you place yourself in a leadership position, if you want to lead, one of the things you're going to have to do is to create a relationship with uncomfortable solutions so you can remain effective. Now, I got quite a few videos that bring this up, that talk about what it takes to navigate your way through uncomfortable situations. But if you're a person who absolutely positively cannot handle uncomfortable situations, then you might want to rethink going for a leadership position, okay? As a leader, you're going to be building respect on the part of your followers by creating a culture of shared values. You can't demand it, you have to earn it. The other way you're going to earn it is by listening to their ideas for improvement and implementing those ideas for improvement. Obviously, the group improves, but that's one of the ways a leader creates respect in the eyes of their followers, okay? You want to motivate a continuous improvement culture through the results that may not always show up right away. In other words, as a leader, as you're developing a culture, there's a lot of delayed gratification. There might be situations where you're implementing a long-term fix, and you have to do it at the expense of the short-term needs. And there's a lot of explaining that goes in to your followers as to why you're having to get hurt on the short term in order to invest in the long term. And oh, by the way, it gets even worse because that solution might not show up for a couple of years. How does that sound? There's a lot of delayed gratification in leadership. And you're going to have to promote the idea of why short-term hits need to be taken if you want long-term growth or a future for the group, okay? The next one is a big one, and it doesn't go over well with a lot of people, but in a leadership position, you might have to fire people that you like. They actually might be very likable people, but they're so horribly incompetent and they can't be trained that you eventually have to replace them with somebody who you can. And firing somebody that you like is not a pleasant experience. In fact, it's a horrible experience. So if you're going for leadership positions, that sounds like something you can do. If it's not, rethink your approach, okay? You're going to have to constantly change your approach according to changing conditions. What was the best way to do something yesterday might have absolutely nothing to do with the best way of doing that same thing tomorrow based on changing conditions. A leader has to be changing with their environment in order for their group to remain relevant. And sometimes that can be hair-raising. Sometimes that rate of change is so high, it has you dragging pretty hard at the end of the day. And you might have lots of days in a row just like that. So somebody who leads is going to be experiencing those types of conditions. So I've given you just a few answers, what I think are very important answers to the question, do you lead? So if the answers that you have in your head for the question of do you lead are similar to the ones that I provided, then yeah, take a look at getting into a leadership position. If the answers were very different though, it's important for you to know that you may manage very well, but you won't be an effective leader. And as we know, and as you'll learn in a lot of other videos that I offer, that leaders that are not effective are not neutral actors. Leaders that are not effective actually do damage. So you're either an effective leader and you're moving your group forward, or you're an ineffective leader that remains in a leadership position and damages the group. You don't want to be the latter. Let's jump into the fourth and final question, and that is, do you believe? In order to lead a highly collaborative group, the leader is in charge of holding the mission success above all other things. That the mission is what's leading the group, not necessarily the leader. And so let's get into some of the particulars. In order for the mission to be an effective part of an organization, it has to be promoted and carried forward and talked about and trained on by somebody in the group. Well, that's the leader's job to do that. We want the entire group to be mission-oriented. But in order for the group to be oriented towards the mission, it is the leader that has to promote that mission on a daily basis. Now, everybody in the group is important. if you have a role in the group that needs to be satisfied or needs to be performed, and there's nobody there to do it, then the group is going to suffer. So everybody that's assigned work in the group is important. Now, a lot of times leaders are seen as more important. So it's a very careful distinction. So let me dig into that a little bit. Leaders, or people that are higher in an organization, have more influence. So if they don't do their job well, they damage the group a lot more than, let's say, an entry-level person that's down lower in the organization. It is for that reason that leaders are considered more important, because when they don't do their job well, they do more damage. But that's the only reason. Every position in a group is important, from the very top CEO all the way down to the entry-level employee. Now, what's really important that leaders do is to make sure people understand what's in the lead, or what is providing leadership to the entire group, is not necessarily the leader, but it's the leader promoting the mission. And leaders need to be promoting the mission even ahead of themselves. So if you get into a leadership position, you're not all that. You're not top dog, because that's not what good, effective leaders do. Good, effective leaders are promoting the mission. And as a matter of fact, every group member should always be placing the mission first in front of themselves, even in front of their own leaders. And that's right, you heard that right. The mission is the most important thing. And you, in a leadership position, need to be telling the people that follow you that it's the mission that's the most important thing, not me. Now, it's my job to promote the mission. It's my job to make sure that the mission is being implemented as a leader. But the most important thing is the mission, not you as a leader. I hope you can understand that distinction. It's a very important distinction, and there's a lot of leaders that don't understand that distinction, which is why I have the question, do you believe? Do you believe in mission first? If you believe in mission first, you will be a great leader. You won't have to convince people to respect you. They'll respect you all by themselves, knowing that you're promoting a mission, not yourself. Okay, so that concludes part 2. So I'll recap the 4 questions. 1 is, do you agree? Do you agree to collaboration? Do you agree to collaborative group behaviors? It's essential that you do. Number 2, do you care? Do you care about the people that work for you? If you don't, you have no business being in a leadership position. Number 3, do you lead? And we went over some very, very specific questions and answers that you need to ask yourself that is going to either prepare you or give you some information that maybe leadership is not something for you. And then last but not least, we find lots of leaders that are self-promoting. But as a leader, do you believe in mission first? If you do, you're moving forward towards being a great leader. Those are the 4 questions. I would ask you to contemplate them very carefully. And if it looks like something you want to do, go for it. And if it looks like something that it might not be something for you, you're not alone. Not everybody's cut out to be in a leadership position. There's nothing bad about not being a leader. Okay? So ask those 4 questions, be honest, and take a look. See if it's something for you. Thanks for watching.